Beyond Reason Radio.
And welcome to Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. We're kind of like in a secret location here, Tom Benson.
We're in a bunker.
Yes, they moved us to a temporary studio. And, of course, my headphones really aren't working because they didn't tell me I would need a jack for the headphones.
That's wonderful.
In this studio. So it's kind of like half working, but it just sounds like static. So
I never knew the iHeartMedia elevator went this far down. Holy cow.
This is where the leftovers go.
Oh,
the
man.
lackeys, they just like send them to the ground level.
We don't see any bones chained to the wall anywhere, do we?
They're around. they gotta be somewhere. But we are here doing the show once again. This is Beyond Reason Radio, where we talk faith, culture, and politics. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. You can catch the podcast anywhere as well on the iHeartRadio app. I know usually I'm on Facebook Live as well. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page, but we're not on Facebook Live because we're in the new studio. And I warned you yesterday that we will not be on Facebook Live tonight. We're kind of working something out for the future. So maybe next week when we do Beyond Reason again, we will be on Facebook Live. And of course, Monday, believe it or not, I'm actually hosting the morning show once again. So...
Really?
Just sound even happier about it there, Tom Benson.
No, I'm happy for you, but here we got the brand new studio. You have to get used to it. Now you're producing and then hosting, and oh my goodness, man, there's so many talents.
Yeah, and this is the one good thing about this new studio, though, is Tom Benson is actually like in the same room as I am.
Isn't that something?
So if he says anything bad about me, usually he can like hide in the glass and then like cuss about me under his breath or something, and I won't hear it unless he says in the talkback. But now I'll hear everything. I don't know if that will stop you, but I just had to warn you that now I hear anything. So one thing, there's a bunch of different topics we have to get to tonight. But once again, it seems like coronavirus is still what's dominating the news. There's a couple of different angles on it, but I was reading a piece earlier from Conservative Review that we have to get to that talks about how in one country they had the longest lockdown of like any other country, and it didn't work. Amazingly enough, it didn't work. It's very shocking. But we also have to talk about what's going on here in Orlando. Because if you run a bar in the city of Orlando, now this is specifically the city of Orlando that we're going to comment on, but I'm pretty sure it's still banned. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom Benson, but I'm pretty sure running a bar is still banned if you're in Seminole or Orange County unless you do one of the loopholes where you sell food or something.
Mm-hmm. Hot food.
Oh, it can't be like pretzels or peanuts or something.
No, it can't be. It can't be the governor's potato chips. It's got to be
the governor's.
Maybe they should be warmed. I'm not sure.
And I know that a lot of bars in town, frankly, at least where I live in Seminole County, that's what they're doing to basically get away with it. Mm-hmm. They're like they're selling food, and they're like, look, we're a restaurant now.
But must you buy food, or can you just have it available if you want it? In other words, do you have to buy food in order to be served alcohol?
That's a really good question. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm actually thinking of, because I do know some bar owners in town and bar managers, because I'm just always at the bars, Tom.
So, of course.
You're not even surprised by this.
You're the norm. You got a special seat where you sit all the time.
What's funny about that is anyone who knows me knows how ridiculous that sounds.
Hey, Yaffee! Hey!
I walk in, yay! So usually it's like, where have you been? I haven't seen you in 6 months. But I do know some bar owners in town, and I want to try to get them on the show next week or possibly the morning show on Monday to talk about this, how they're doing. Because according to Buddy Dyer, they might not be opening for a while. So we got to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about the fact that a prominent church in California, the pastor I really like, really respect. I talked about this on the morning show when I hosted last week, but he commented on it more. He is, bucking the trend, and he's basically going to keep having church, and he might get fined for it, but he's still going to have church.
Wow.
Anyway.
I saw a picture of a church somewhere. I don't know where it was, but I just read it quickly on Facebook. They're having their services in the aisles of Walmart.
Really?
Because they can't meet
really
in the church.
Yeah, you have to give the American people credit for being innovative in situations like this. Is what always happens. So we'll talk about that. But first, Tom Benson's in the same room with me. Breathing all his virus particles in my direction.
No.
And how are you, Tom? I haven't asked how you're doing.
I'm doing fine. I'm just getting used to the new digs here, because for decades, if we wanted to look at certain computer monitors, you look to your left. Well, now those are on the right.
Yeah.
And there's one thing we used to look for on the right. It's now on the left.
I know.
So your eyes, when you move, your eyes just don't focus where they normally should be, So good luck tomorrow morning.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking about this. I was in that studio basically since I started, which, if you count my internship, was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've been basically in the same studio, except for a little while we were in a smaller studio while they were redoing it. But I was basically in there for 10 years.
Well, now you're going to earn your high wages.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. So we have to talk about what's going on in the city of Orlando with Buddy Dyer, because I actually had been promoting for a few weeks now something that Buddy Dyer recently said.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was on the morning show. Bud Allen interviewed him. And he talked about, are we going to have to shut down again? This is when the virus started spiking again here in Central Florida and across the state. And I thought he made, an excellent point. And, well, let's go ahead and play that first cut, Tom Benson, on what Buddy Dyer said on our show, on the morning show, a few weeks ago.
We have to learn to coexist with this virus, because I don't see a vaccine coming anytime soon. And Dr. Pino said it pretty well one time. We can't ping pong back and forth between being open, being closed, being open, being closed, because we could do that forever if we don't have a vaccine. We could relax the rules and go to full capacity at restaurants and then be at 1,500 positive tests and have to roll back. So I'm just imploring everybody to do what we can as our civic duty, is to protect each other, to protect the businesses.
So he said there, and I really respected what he said. He's like, look, we can't just keep shutting down, reopening, shutting down, reopening. It's not something that makes sense, because you're not going to be able to fully contain this virus until you have a vaccine. And you can't just shut down the entire economy everywhere until there's a vaccine. And he admits it could be a long time until there's a vaccine. We don't know for sure. There's a lot of optimism out there right now because so many different groups are working on a vaccine and they really want to get it out there. And maybe the vaccine will be out by the beginning of next year. But that's still a long time for a lot of these places to be closed. And so he's saying, look, we have to learn to coexist with this virus. And I praised him. I said, good. I hope you stick to that, buddy, because... And I'm not just being mean. Some people say, hey, buddy. No, that's his name, Buddy Dyer. Just a reminder there. But no, I hope you stick to that, Mayor Dyer, because you're right. You're exactly. It's what I was saying all along. You cannot just expect to shut down forever, but you also can't expect the virus. You shut down once. If you reopen, there's going to be an increase in cases. The virus doesn't care when you shut down. Once you reopen, it's going to spread again. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. Yeah. I'm not an epidemiologist, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But it seems to be like I've been proven right on this, because from the very beginning of all of this, I kept asking people, what do you do what is to prevent it from increasing after the shutdown? Somebody give me an answer. And nobody had an answer for me. Oh,
and
testing and contact tracing.
Yeah. Well, whoop-de-doo, huh?
Yeah. And
that's always after the fact, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then but there's asymptomatic. So we don't even know who's getting it. And there's so many different reactions to people getting it. How do we know? So Buddy Dyer was right. But now Buddy Dyer has changed his tune, at least on one thing. And I think this really bothers me. This is not a good thing. And this is from someone who really doesn't have a personal stake in this issue. Buddy Dyer basically is saying that the bars have to be stayed closed until there's a vaccine. He was asked about this recently on ABC News. ABC News did an interview with him. And first, he admitted some good news, which I suspected as well, that we have not seen a giant spike in cases as a result of the theme parks being open. Of course, he doesn't want the theme parks to close for many reasons.
But we let the out-of-towners take it home with them.
Yeah, they can come and just take it. Yeah, get out of here. But here's what he said, the first part of the interview where he was talking about the theme parks. Here it is.
Mayor, I know Orlando, very well known for its theme parks. You began reopening in June and July. So what is your stance on all of those reopenings, given your recent spikes?
We haven't had any evidence of any COVID-related positive tests related to visiting theme parks. There certainly hasn't been an outbreak, and I've been extremely impressed with the protocols and the procedures that each of the theme parks have put in. They're only operating at about 25% capacity. So I think they've done a really good job in terms of what they've done. I've heard a few people say maybe one of the safest places to be to avoid the coronavirus is one of our theme parks.
All I remember is when we started opening the theme parks, there was a lot of people fear-mongering on that issue, saying, how can we do that right now? It's going to be a really bad situation. There are spikes in cases. We're caring about money more than people. It's all the same stuff. But the theme parks have opened. They took certain steps that were needed, which is fine, which I had been calling for from the beginning. Don't close everything down, but take steps to do at least some mitigation. I don't think it's unreasonable. But then he was asked here about the bars in Orlando, because the bars have been closed. And a lot of the bar owners are sick of it. They're losing their livelihood. They want a chance to reopen. And the state of Florida wants to actually look into a way to get the bars to be able to reopen, which I think is a good thing. But Buddy Dyer, the mayor of Orlando, was asked about this. Here's what he said.
I know Florida's top regulator meeting with bar owners across the state to talk about how they could safely reopen their businesses. Do you foresee bars reopening in Orlando anytime soon?
I think bars are in one of the most difficult situations, because unlike a restaurant where you might go with your family and sit in a booth and be able to isolate or socially distance, when you go to a bar, you're going there to interact with people. You're not going there to sit in a corner and drink your beer by yourself. So it's probably the biggest challenge for a business, any sort of business that we have. So I just don't know how until probably we have a vaccine. I'm not sure how we bring the bars back, quite honestly.
So he is not sure how we're going to bring the bars back until there's a vaccine. Now, I just played for you in that first cut that he says maybe it could be a year, 2 years before we have a vaccine.
Oh, man.
And now he's saying we can't have the bars open until there's a vaccine. Imagine being a bar owner right now. You're already going to be affected no matter what because of the pandemic. Restaurants are affected. Even the ones that are open are affected no matter what because of the pandemic. Although I did hear one local restaurant, what they're doing is, I should just say the restaurant because I love them. And they're like, what they do, it's Amigos in Altamont. Okay. I would encourage everyone to go there. It's free plug for them because they're awesome.
You going there for dinner after the show tonight?
Not tonight. No. I already had my Taco Bell earlier. But Amigos. But I asked her, how's business been? And she said, well, it's picked up once the reopening started. Then it started to kind of tail off a little bit because people were a little scared. To-go orders have been going good, but they've had margaritas to go. is what she meant. And they're like gallon margaritas.
Oh,
to go.
So don't drink on the premises, but take it home with you?
Yeah, you can do it.
Oh,
I mean, now you can drink on the premises, I guess, because it's a restaurant, but it's still...
I see. Got it.
When they were shut down, they put out a big sign, margaritas to go. And they were like gallon margaritas, and the frozen margaritas are really good, by the way. And
American
and she said
ingenuity
that like saved their business. That's what my waitress said at Amigos. But Pete, these bars, imagine being a bar owner right now. You're struggling. You were already struggling, and then you were shut down. Then you were giving a little bit of hope that maybe we can reopen again. And a lot of the bars did the responsible, not all of them. But some of the bars did the responsible thing, and they did everything they were told, and they put all this money into reopening safely. Then all of a sudden, they're told to shut down again. And they're like, okay, how am I going to survive this? But you try to survive anyway. You try to make it through. And then you have Buddy Dyer come out and say, you might not reopen until there's a vaccine. And we have no idea when there's a vaccine. What do you do? What do you do as a bar owner in that situation? I'm going to continue this conversation. I'm going to tell you why this won't work anyway. Why it's a totally pointless endeavor when you really think about it. I'm also going to give you an example of some other cities where the business owners are really struggling because of shutdowns, like the one Buddy Dyer is talking about. We'll get to that and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. Live from the closet in the iHeart.
The Inner Sanctum.
Yeah, okay, we'll give it a nice name. The Inner Sanctum in the iHeart Media Building. They have us in a temporary studio if you need stuff before. This is Beyond Reason Radio.
It's the unmarked floor on the elevator. It just kind of opens up and they push us out, and here we are.
Yeah, I always wondered where that button took us to, and here we are.
You thought it was to the cafe downstairs. No, that's just the cover.
I wish. If they ever reopen the cafe. It's another thing that's shut down because of the pandemic.
They serve booze? In this building, probably.
Yeah, probably. But welcome back to the show. We're talking about the fact that Mayor Buddy Dyer basically admitted in an interview recently that we're not going to be able to open the bars probably until there's a vaccine. Now, a lot of the bars are getting around this because they're selling food. But some bars are not going to be able to get around that. They're not going to be able to sell food. That means they're not going to be able to survive. Now, of course, when you ask Buddy or you ask others, okay, what do we do about this? Instead of being reasonable and saying, you know what, we really need to work hard to find a way to reopen. That should be the goal, in my opinion, when it comes to all of this stuff. When it comes to schools, when it comes to bars, when it comes to the theme parks, there should be at least an effort to try to reopen, to try to find a way to get it done safely. Because Buddy Dyer, which he said on WFLA a couple weeks ago, he was right. We have to learn to coexist with this virus. He was right when he said that. Now he's changed his mind, apparently. But instead, you have people like Buddy Dyer not even trying to make an effort, saying, nope, bars are just going to be closed until there's a vaccine. Then you have other people, when it comes to schools, which really need to be open for a lot of people in this state and in this country. You have the teachers union who says, no, we're not even going to try to make an effort. We're going to basically use kids and hold them hostage for our political means. And some of them are scared. I understand that. Some teachers are scared. I understand that. Then those are the ones that should stay home. But there should at least be an effort made to get them open and find a way to do it safely. But I'm not seeing an effort made in a lot of these situations. Instead, what I'm seeing is, we just can't do anything about it. We're just going to shut down until there's a vaccine, and the government's going to send you checks. That's usually the solution I hear. And that's what I hear when it comes to the bars in Orlando a lot of time is, well, the government's just going to send you checks. We'll have to have some kind of bailout for the bars as well. It's not the same thing. But honestly, I think the whole thing is pointless anyways, and this is why. Because where do you think these people that hang out at bars, a lot of people, they hang out at different bars because that's their social life, okay? Which is fine. It's not mine, but some people I know it is, and that's fine. That's where they meet their friends. That's where they let loose a little bit. Do you think those people are just going to stay home alone if they can't go to the bar? No, they're going to go over to each other's houses.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have parties and get-togethers and poker games or whatever. They'll just set up a dartboard at someone's house, and they're all going to crowd in someone's apartment, and they're going to do what they would have done at the bar anyway.
So what have you accomplished? Is that what your point is?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, it's even worse because most likely, if you go to someone's house, the people at that house are really not going to take any precautions seriously. Mm-hmm. There isn't going to be mask wearing. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a smaller area, and more people are going to be sick. And that's exactly how a lot of people have been sick, is these house parties.
There was a story out in L.A. where this, some big shot had a super house party loaded with people, like 100 people in all different rooms. The place was all lit up. So the only thing the city can think to do is to shut off his power.
And that's the thing. Instead of realizing that your policy maybe was a bad one and maybe you should have found a way to open up the bar safely, they're going to push people into the homes, and then when they're going to get mad at the people having the parties at their home, and then they're going to send the police to people's houses and shut off their power and stuff.
Use a strong arm.
Yeah, I mean, come on. There should be an effort in a free country to allow people to go do these things. And like I said, I have no stake in this. I don't go to bar. If the bar is closed, it really doesn't affect me personally. I mean, I do like to go every now and then and play pool. So if a bar has billiards, I do like to do that. It's something I enjoy.
Sure.
But, it wouldn't affect me. It wouldn't be a huge deal to me if they close. Mm-hmm. But this affects a lot of people. In the next segment, I'll read this commentary from a bar owner in San Diego. And it's really sad to hear what's going on there with him. So we'll continue this conversation. By the way, we have to talk about what's going on with the NRA. New York is trying to basically disband them.
Good luck on that one, huh?
Yeah, we'll see how that works. But I'm going to tell you why it's a dumb effort in the big scheme of things. Even if you're successful in getting rid of the NRA, it's not going to accomplish what you think it will. So we'll talk about that next and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Yes, welcome back to Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Make sure, by the way, if you miss any of the show, you can catch the podcast after the show on the iHeart Radio app or anywhere the podcasts are available. Also, follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. We always have fun on this show. Right?
That's right. That's right. Is that a special word tonight?
It is a special word because you know what else would be a lot of fun? Winning $1,000. And that's right. All you have to do is remember that word fun, which should be easy to remember because you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio. So it's fun. You remember that word. Then you text that word to 200-200. And you could win $1,000 in a grand in your hand texting contest. I mean, we'll help you pay your bills. Text FUN, F-U-N, to 200-200. Standard message and data rates apply. It is a nationwide contest. If you get a call from a 513 area code phone number, pick it up because that means you probably won $1,000. Text FUN to 200-200. One thing that is not fun, though, is what's going on in some of these big cities right now that are basically not letting bars open. And like I said, I have no personal stake in this, but I was reading this piece. It's a commentary out of the San Diego Tribune. It says here, I was a proud San Diego small business owner. Not anymore. When we were against the shutdowns, when it was all going down, and people like me were saying, we need to find a way to reopen because this is devastating. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were criticizing people like me saying, oh, you're just trying to get Trump reelected, or you just care about the Dow. Remember, you just care about the stock market. You want to reopen to help the stock market. But really, it's not the big-time businesses that are really hurt by this.
Although they are hurt.
I mean, yes, they are hurt. I'm not denying that.
But it affects the little guy
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It affects the small business owner way more than it affects the likes of Disney. And some big businesses have actually done better. I mean, just look at Publix, look at Amazon, look at some of the delivery services. Sure. So this idea that, oh, we just care about big business, we don't care about the little guy when we say we want to reopen is just not true. But this was by Scott Donovan Blair in San Diego, who said, when we think about what is necessary for our lives, the answers are not complicated. Family, future, livelihood, safety, and health are all instinctively tied to one another. They are on everyone's absolute list. As a South Park bar owner and disabled veteran, I have invested professionally in my San Diego community since 2006. I worked hard to build my equity, and then I turned around and invested in my community, generating millions of dollars in state and city taxes. I've spent over $1 million in payroll, creating jobs and opportunities for a diverse workforce. I have been proud to be a middle-class San Diego small business owner. I am not so proud of San Diego and California anymore. Shut down for the second extended time this year. I'm not sure my business will ever come back, is what the small business owner in San Diego is saying. He did everything right. He invested in his community. He created jobs, and now he's being punished for it. Says, when we were able to reopen with restrictions, we rigorously went through the requirements. We adapted and operated as safely as possible, and this constrained our profitability, generating maybe 25% to 30% of prior revenue. Not enough to pay our bills. Still, I was hopeful that we'd survive with the small help we were able to get from the federal government, even though our expenses weren't cut commensurably. Meaningful city and state aid has been non-existent for small businesses. However, the restrictions levied have been catastrophic. The mixed messages in recent months from public officials on what should close have been frustrating. You can go to Ross and Home Depot, but you can't go get your hair cut or go to the gym. These are the hypocrisies that sensible people are struggling to comprehend. And he's exactly right. This is not being spread by going to the store or anything. It's not being spread on surfaces. It's being spread mostly in homes by people who know each other and are in close contact for a long time. It says, I know that COVID-19 is real. I believe the coronavirus that causes it to be highly contagious. I think it can be extremely deadly to a smaller percentage of people in specific age groups or people with subsets of pre-existing conditions. Still, my future and livelihood or anyone else's being eliminated should not be a solution for San Diego's or California's COVID-19 policy. Modern life has its inherent risks. This is what's going on in San Diego, but I guarantee it's going on in Orlando, too. Sure,
he's not the only one. And then eventually states everywhere will be affected by the loss of tax revenue from businesses like that.
Yep, that's very true. You know what they're going to do? They're going to raise taxes. They're just going to raise the rate on everyone else. It's exactly what their solution's going to be.
Or knock on President Trump's door asking for a bailout.
That's true. Well, it's going to be Nancy Pelosi's door that they're knocking on. We know how that works. He says, what took over a decade to build has been erased in a few short months by a virulent form of human sacrifice not caused by the virus, but by poor social and political decisions. The city has benefited from our commitment to it and should have a duty to cure our loss if it has the right to close us. We want to be safe, provide meaningful relief, forgive our rent, taxes, and utilities, supplement that income you are taking away so we can pay our bills. Says, help us be a part of the solution and not just collateral damage. Isn't that not the truest of compromises in the best interest of public health and safety for everyone? So what is essential? My family and I are. My coworkers are. Small businesses are. Exactly right. I had people commenting on my Twitter saying, waitresses and bartenders are not essential. Their job is essential to them.
Sure.
To their families, to their livelihoods. It's sick what's going on. And this is by someone who is not saying it's a hoax, who just wants to go back to normal. They're willing to do what it takes to try to be safe. But he's also trying to say we need to make an effort to coexist with this virus. You know, someone who's actually kind of changed his tune a little bit on some of this is Dr. Anthony Fauci, believe it or not. So he actually has been saying we probably don't need to completely shut down again. Now, I don't agree with everything he said here, but he makes a point that I said not too long ago when he was talking about the fact of shutting down and how the argument is always between full shutdown or no shutdown. And he says there really is a middle ground, something I've been saying for weeks. Here it is.
You don't need to either shut down completely or let it rip, as I say. And I use that terminology when we were talking about that, you might remember, Jeff. There is a middle ground where you can prudently open. So I think the misperception among some is that either you're going to shut us down completely or we're going to do whatever we want. No, that was the reason for the guidelines of opening up the country. If you do it prudently, you don't have to shut down.
Now, the only issue is define prudently, because a lot of these places did do it prudently, and we still had issues because, believe it or not, a virus is something beyond our control. As much as we would love to be able to control all of it, we can't. An example of this would be what happened in the Philippines, believe it or not. Daniel Horowitz on the Conservative Review talked about this, and he's exactly right. He said, Philippines had the harshest lockdown in most mask wearing. It didn't work. He says, nowhere is the insanity and national the insanity of lockdown policies more evident than in the Philippines. The nation of over 100 million holds the distinction of having undergone the longest and most severe lockdown. They have the highest rate of mask wearing in the world, according to a recent survey. In other words, they've done everything the propagators of corona panic porn ever dreamt of, is what he says here in the article. Yet, their answer is a new lockdown because cases are surging. You can't run or hide from a respiratory virus. This is what I'm saying. You can't run or hide from it. It's going to spread. If you shut down, it'll just spread after. And they just want to lock down again. They want a new lockdown, he continues, all the while missing the irony that the first series of totalitarian mandates didn't work. Now they have a weakened and destitute population to face the virus, while countries like Sweden achieved de facto herd immunity from a position of strength. Just how insane was the lockdown in the Philippines? Beginning as early as March 15th, under the direction of the president there, anyone under 21 or over 60 was not allowed out of his home. Only one family member could go out for food and medicine, and there was an across-the-board curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And, by the way, the president there apparently had threatened to have violators shot, which is insane. And yet, it didn't work. The Philippines are having a surge, and they have the longest shutdown. So this idea that shutdowns are the be-all, end-all is just not true. We have to move on to a different topic here in the next segment because we have to get into what's going on between the NRA and the New York Attorney General and more. Plus, something a little different at the end of the show today. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Yes, welcome back to the show. The latest breaking news as of today that's getting all of the attention is the fact that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, is filing a lawsuit against the National Rifle Association and wants them disbanded. I mean, this isn't just like for them to pay a fine or something. Mm-hmm. Her goal is to have them disbanded. Mm-hmm. Now, apparently she is someone who has criticized the NRA for a long time, has not liked the NRA campaign to go against the NRA and all of that. Mm-hmm. So to act like she's just trying to uphold the rule of law or something to get the NRA disbanded is ridiculous.
Or she just wants to make headlines.
Yeah, she wants to make headlines. It's a political thing. Mm-hmm. She doesn't like the NRA. She doesn't like the Second Amendment. She wants to go after them. And she found a way to do it. Now, President Trump actually tweeted about this and said that the NRA should move to Texas, which makes sense to me. Why in the world are they in New York anyway?
I thought they were in Virginia or near Washington, D.C. someplace. I Are they chartered somehow in New York State? Or
yeah, you know what? I am not sure about that, unless maybe they are.
That must be
Oh, you know
it.
what? You're right. It's headquarters in Fairfax, Virginia.
Uh-huh.
But Trump said, I think the NRA should move to Texas and lead a very good and beautiful life. And because Virginia's gone pretty Democrat, too, and especially around the D.C. area. And I've told them that for a long time. I think they should move to Texas. Texas would be a great state, or to another state of their choosing. But I would say Texas, that would be a great place and an appropriate place for the NRA. But now the NRA, interestingly enough, is fighting back in an interesting way because, according to Fox News, they're filing their own lawsuit against the New York Attorney General. Mm-hmm. Their lawsuit is alleging, and this is a civil suit against the New York Attorney General, accusing her of defamation and violating its rights to free speech. The NRA's lawsuit was filed in the federal court of New York and alleges Attorney General Letitia James made the political prosecution of the NRA a central campaign theme. And when she was running for the office in 2018, and has not treated the association fairly since. Says here, despite hopes that playing by the rules would procure a just outcome, the NRA has not been treated fairly by James's office. The New York Democratic Party political machine seeks to harass, defund, and dismantle the NRA because of what it believes and what it says. Now, we all know this is true, right? I mean, this is similar to them going after Al Capone via tax fraud. I mean, the real reason they wanted him in jail was because he was a mafia leader. But they went after him for another reason. They believe the NRA is just as bad as the mob, and they're going to go after him some way because they don't like the NRA. I mean, if this was another organization like Planned Parenthood or something, there's no way she would be seeking this.
Of course not.
I mean, we know this. It's pretty obvious. But yeah, they're fighting back. But what's really interesting to me is there's a constant push by the left that if they somehow succeeded in disbanding the NRA, if getting rid of the NRA, if they were successful in that would basically hurt the Second Amendment in this country. That the only reason why they can't get more gun control push is because of the powerful NRA and all of the NRA's money. And honestly, I think this is a huge misconception. Let's say they completely succeed here in getting rid of the NRA. And by the way, the NRA does have some problems. Mm-hmm. They've had some issues within the organization recently, which I totally understand. But, okay, let's say this works. You totally disband the NRA. Do you honestly think that the millions of gun owners in this country who were previously with the NRA are just going to give up their guns now because the NRA doesn't exist? Or that those in Congress who support the Second Amendment are just going to not support it anymore because the NRA doesn't exist? I mean, come on. We know why they support the NRA. It's not because of all the money they get from the NRA. It's because their constituents support the Second Amendment. And by having the NRA support, it helps them with their constituents. The left constantly tries to make it that they're just bought by the NRA, but this is not true. They're beholden by their constituents, by their voters. Now, someone who actually made this point was Marco Rubio several times. And remember when you had the horrible Parkland shooting, but then afterward they did that town hall with Jake Tapper where they had a bunch of family members of those who were killed and other people from the school and parents and students. They did this town hall, and Marco Rubio was there, and Dana Loesch was there from the NRA and all of that stuff. And it was really, really a terrible situation. But one thing they tried to do was get people like Rubio to disassociate with the NRA because they wanted to make it seem like the NRA was the problem. Well, Rubio actually fought back against that narrative during the town hall. He had a lot of guts in what he did. I remember when this went on, the fact that he went basically in the middle of what was an emotional time and a lot of people basically mobbing against him. And he still stood up for what he believed in. But he fought back against that narrative, and he was exactly right then, and it's the same is exactly true now. Here's what he said.
The question is about NRA money. So, number one, the positions I hold on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. Number two, no, the answer to the question is that people buy into my agenda. And I do support the Second Amendment, and I also support the right of you and everyone here to be able to go to school and be safe. And I do support any law that would keep guns out of the hands of a deranged killer. And that's why I support the things that I have stood for and fought for during my time there.
NRA money? More NRA money?
That is the wrong way to look. First of all, the answer is people buy into my agenda.
You can say no.
Second, well,
Guys,
the influence of any group.
We're going to be here all night.
The influence of these groups comes not from money. The influence comes from the millions of people that agree with the agenda. So the millions of Americans that support the NRA and who support gun rights groups.
So what he was saying there, and he's exactly right, is that he's saying, I don't support the Second Amendment because the NRA gives me money. The reason they've got it backwards. The reason why the NRA gives me money is because I already supported the Second Amendment. That's what it's going to be like. So if the NRA, if they're successful somehow, and I don't think they will be, let's just say the Democrats are successful in totally disbanding the NRA. Do you honestly think the millions of gun voters are not going to just go? They're just going to go somewhere else. They're just going to create a new organization, and who knows, that organization might end up being a lot better, or being a lot more powerful because they don't have the corruption that if the NRA has all this corruption, they could create a new organization that stands up for the Second Amendment and not have all the corruption that you see.
A fresh start, in other words.
Yeah, it might even be more powerful. Every time, though, what's really interesting is every time something like this happens, gun sales go way up. So it always has the opposite effect anyway of what the Democrats want. Should we go to Biden real quick?
Okay.
Because Biden, this is just a quick note, but Biden had another gaffe, which really was beyond reason.
Oh, really?
Talking about African-American voters versus Latino voters.
Oh.
If Trump said this, could you imagine if Trump said this? Go ahead and play it for me.
Yes, and by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
So the African-American community isn't very diverse. They all think alike, apparently. According to Joe Biden, the Latino community is, but not blacks. Could you imagine if Trump said that? He would be called a racist up and down every day, but Biden will get away with it. Oh, it's just Joe.
Good old Uncle Joe.
Man, the debates. I can definitely see why the Democrats don't want him to debate, because he'll just step in it. But he's trying to make it all about Trump. So why don't we end the show with something a little bit different today? How about instead of something that made Yaffee laughy, I thought it would be a good idea to end with something that made Yaffee happy.
It's morning. The sun is shining. Your kids are... So give yourself a break and give them Kraft mac and cheese for breakfast.
What? Genius marketing by Kraft Mac and Cheese. Anyone who knows me knows that I love macaroni and cheese. My wife is probably listening right now, and she's nodding her head and rolling her eyes. But
well, in times like this, more people are looking for more comfort food. And why not have comfort food in the morning? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. This is genius. Why? And I started thinking about this. I don't think I've ever had macaroni and cheese for breakfast. Ever. Why not? And you know me, I have to cut my hot dogs in my macaroni and cheese. So you have macaroni and cheese and hot dogs cut up in it. Yeah. And by the way, my wife during our wedding vows actually said that she would make me macaroni and cheese and hot dogs one day because she loves me so much. So if there's something that made Yaffee happy, the idea of macaroni and cheese for breakfast. I think this is something that its time has come. It's very, very necessary in today's world. I really appreciate you listening to the show today, even though we're in the bunker, in the closet here at the iHeart Radio studios here in Orlando. But I appreciate you listening to the show. If you missed any of the show, catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. Like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. And, well, I'll catch you guys next time. By the way, Connections with Melissa Fox is tonight, coming out at 9 p.m. Connection Show. Check that out as well.